All right, thank you guys for coming to our PLC meeting and for staying after school to do that. I really appreciate that. And for Becky for calling in. Today at our meeting, we will have myself, Mary Quinn, and Becky Leverett, who are our sixth grade science team. Becky's joining us via Google Meet, and we will be joined a little bit later by LaShondra Rogers, who's our department head, and Blake Langley, who is our sixth grade assistant principal. Our goal is to not let this meeting take more than 45 minutes. I'm going to share my screen with you so that you can see my the agenda for the meeting. Let me go here and share so we know kind of where we're going and what our norms are going to be. So here's our agenda for our meeting. And don't freak out that there's so much stuff on there. It's really not as much as it looks like. Okay, so we're going to keep to these norms. So we want to keep student success as our primary goal. We're going to put our cell phones aside and so we can focus in. We started on time and the goal is to end on time. Hopefully you got my email about bringing in your testing data from our most recent common assessment and the beginning of year. And we're going to do our best to stay on task and end on time. So those are some of our norms. Any that you guys want to add to those that you think we need to add to our norms? Anything that you think we forgot?
Good for me.
That's good for you, Becky?
Yeah, that's
Okay.
good.
All right. So first, I think we should start out by talking about what is going well. It's easy to start with the opposite. So we're going to start with what are some successes that are happening in your room, things that you think are going well, and with regard to anything school related, or even personally, if something's going well that you want to share, that's going well. Mary, you want to start?
Yeah, well, one thing that I am getting used to using the remote or working with my remote students better.
Okay.
And that's going a lot smoother. I've learned to do some things with the remote students that I didn't know how to do before. For example, sharing my screen with them so that they can see like a PowerPoint that we did today in class. And my students in the class can see it, and my students at home can see it. The only thing I haven't mastered is showing a video to my kids at home on their screen. That's something that we're working on.
I have worked on that as well, and I worked with Allie. I had her in a Zoom meeting with me or a Google Meet, and we were not able to get my computer to do that without it making that screechy sound. And she suggested that we go find somebody who's having success with that and see what their setup is.
We've tried everything, and we just can't seem to make it work.
Yeah, I've tried just doing a tab. I've tried doing the whole computer. Becky, are you able to show a video at the same time without the screechy sound?
You know what I have had to do? I have had to share my screen on my Chromebook and then mute the video and or just show the kids the video via the Chromebook.
Okay.
I've actually had more success with sharing my screen and then having my kids on with the Chromebook or logging on with my cart and showing the video, but then the kids that are online cannot hear me when I go to speak at any time. I have to flip back and forth, back and forth, back and forth.
Yes, I'm having that same situation. What I usually have done is I put the video I want to show my kid at home in Google Classroom, and I have told them we will be back in just a minute. I'm going to mute you. We're going to watch it. You're going to watch it. I'll leave it on with the closed caption, and then we watch it. And that has worked for me. It's not really impeding. The kids here are patient here in the classroom are patient, and the kids at home are as well. So I think that just has become our routine in that way. So did you want to share any other successes?
I actually started doing that.
Oh, good.
I started doing it with Ed Puzzles. I would have the kids log off and watch the Ed Puzzle while I was watching the Ed Puzzle with the kids in school, in class. And they were taking their little quiz during it. And then I'd tell them, all right, in 15 minutes, because I have some that have accommodations, so they get extra time.
Mm-hmm.
I want y'all to come back. If you have an accommodation, then I want you to go ahead and just turn it in, and I will message you and talk to you in a little bit if you need that extra time. So
Okay.
that's how that's been working out.
Okay. Good. So did you have anything else you wanted to share that was a success for you?
Well, I just feel like I'm becoming more comfortable with my students in my classroom.
Mhm.
Seems like that they are beginning to get used to being able to sit and participate in class more
Mhm.
than they were at the beginning. At the beginning, it was like you couldn't get their attention. I mean, they were just like asleep.
Mhm.
But now I think that they're beginning to get back into the routine
Mhm.
Oh,
of
good.
being at school.
That's
So,
wonderful.
yeah.
Okay. What about you, Becky? What's working well? I know you're having some challenges, but what are some things that you might say is working well?
Well, I think that as we move forward a little bit, I'm building a stronger relationship with the kids and kind of reiterating that, it's focus time. They're starting to finally realize that, oh, okay, we're serious here.
Mhm.
And so I have noticed a lot more of them kind of engaging, um, being more attentive, and maybe, some of the ones that were way gone at the beginning of 6 weeks or or throughout it have kind of pulled back in and are starting to actually, I guess, care now, get back in the swing of things, start realizing that, hey, I'm back in school. You know, it just took them a minute, but I think that they're starting to kind of feel it now.
Excellent. That is really good. Well, I'm finding the transitions between my at-home students and my in-class students, it's pretty seamless at this point, kind of working in that medium at the same time. I try to include my at-home students as much as I can in the school day. Miss Procopia across the hall, she takes them out in the hallway and lets them see the kids, changing in the hallways and stuff. She really does make them try to feel a part. And she'll take them on a tour. She took them on a tour of the school and stuff. I haven't gone that far, but I definitely check in with them. And I feel like they do feel a part of the day and of the class. And I feel like my students are comfortable with my classroom routines for sure. They know what is expected of them, and they are doing that for the most part, as far as like keeping our room clean, keeping our masks on, working in groups. I do need to model a little bit more of what successful working in groups looks like. So we're working on some things that we're working on a roller coaster project and had to redirect a few of our students today about, okay, what you're doing doesn't sound like work to me. Let's get back on task. But they got right back on. So I think this is a really well-behaved group. There's been a very few behavior problems at school in general. So I think that those are all definitely successes.
Yeah, mine are well behaved. I haven't had very many issues at all. A couple stubborn kids, but other than that, I haven't really had any problems.
Awesome. Okay. I'm going to stop sharing this necessarily. I don't know that y'all need to see the agenda. Do you need it? You don't need to see the agenda, Becky. I'm going to stop sharing.
Mm.
But it's up here on the board at school. So let's see. We'll go through that. Okay. All right. So the next thing after we talked about what is going well. I'm sorry, Lashundra, you have joined us. Would you like to tell us what's going well on your hallway?
On my hallway, I think overall we're just getting a better understanding of how to meet our students' needs in preparing for STAR test.
Okay.
I mean, between the transition with IB and increasing the rigor, I think on the 8th grade hall, we've done a lot to really increase the rigor this year. It's just making sure that we are able, like you said, to get more of those students engaged remote learners.
Yeah, I have some really solid remote learners who I really wish were in my class. They produce really great work, and I'd love to see them in here. More a part of the discussion. But that's not okay for their family. I totally understand. I wish they were here. We're here with us because they're just really good. I'd love to get to know them a little bit better. I find that as a challenge, maybe getting to know the online kids the way that you get to know a student in class. I mean, we chat in the chat, and I get to know them, and I'm getting to know their personalities a little bit better, but you don't know them as well. I don't feel like I do. So that's something that I want to work on, is kind of getting to know them just a little bit better on a personal level as much as you can, in our medium that we're working in now. Okay, so next on our agenda is any classroom management issues that we're having? like with any kids? I haven't noticed anybody having
I
any
have
trouble.
a few in one particular class. It's just a small, it's like 3 or 4 girls that want to talk a little bit to them or just communicate with each other in just about any way they can, verbally or non-verbally. And I have to pretty much continually throughout the class refocus them. But that is the only group that I'm really having any struggling with. Behavior, and Miss Beatty has been coming into that class with a couple of those girls because they are also not doing their work like they need to be, and they're one of them is her students also. So, but that's the only one I'm having. Most of my kids are just really well behaved.
That's awesome.
And very respectable. So,
Is there something you think you could do
Miss
other than what you're
Beatty-
other than what
Beatty,
you're doing, or maybe a
I've
scheduling
moved-
change or
I
something?
moved one of the girls today, and I jokingly told her now she can see everybody better. She doesn't have to turn 2 different directions to see them. But anyway, I was just joking with her. But Miss Beatty said that that was a very good move where I put her. So I'm going to keep her there. And then I'm going to move another one of the girls back to the very back of the room so that they won't be in so much eye contact with each other.
Oh, that's good.
But anyway, we're going to get that worked out.
I had a student who returned to school today, and I think that has been a challenge. The returning students, like we have our routine in our class. We know when we line up for lunch. We know when the timer goes off, exactly what to do. And this gentleman, first of all, I didn't know that he was coming back today. I didn't get a heads up on that. He just said, "I'm here today." I'm like, "Well, welcome. That's wonderful."
Okay.
But he was like, "Okay, what do we do now?" What if he just needed to, and that's great. And he was asking his friends, "How do we get out of this school?" I heard him at the end of the day. "How do we get out of here?" So they have that whole new student learning curve before they, when they return to campus. So that was just interesting. Yeah. Are you having any classroom management issues, Miss Leverett?
No, not really. I mean, I've had to take a couple out in the hallway, and I've had to redirect on some tones that they've used. But other than that, not really. The usual, hey, settle down kind of stuff, but nothing serious.
I had a girl show out, and I had a lot of support from her parent when I emailed her parent. And she came back the next day or when we met again and apologized for her behavior and said, I was having a bad day. And we just moved on. So I've had lots of parental support. Whenever I've contacted parents, I've had lots of parental support. So maybe that's something, if you're having an issue, some of those parents are right on it and others not so much. Not so much. Okay, so I wanted to talk to you guys about our data, and I wanted to show you how to access the math and the reading scores in DMAC. Our science scores that we got from the beginning of the year test are not terribly helpful to us because it's supporting content, but it's not really our TEKS. It's not pushing forward really to 8th grade. So it's not giving us the information about why our students might not be successful on our common assessment. So I think if we look at their reading score, if we look at their math score, that might give us some insight into if it's a reading issue that they're not getting. And this test didn't have math on it, but maybe it's that they can't read, then we can plan better how to help those kids. So I'm going to share my screen with you at home, Becky, so that we can learn how to find the math and the reading score. And I'm not suggesting that you go and get this for every student, but it might be helpful for those that are really struggling to diagnose their problem. Is it a math problem? Is it a reading problem? So in DMAC, you are going to go to Students Reports, and you have to click refresh the test to get the test that you want. I didn't share my screen. Hold on. Let me share my screen. Sorry.
It's okay. I'm writing it down. I can't really stare at it anyway, Trish. So I'm just writing it on paper.
They need to see it here in the class. I just didn't share.
Yep. Okay. Yeah. Step-by-step instructions.
Okay. Where was I? DMAC. Okay. So you're going to refresh the tests, and it's where you have to choose a student. So I'm going to choose a student who a strong student, and then this student I know did not do well. And this student is an at-home student, just to kind of give you a different view. So here are their tests that they've taken. There's their math test, their reading test, and their science test. So that's all of their tests. So you can click those. We really don't need their common assessment for math, so you can unclick that one. And their reading test. So then we want student progress and show local history. And I did include TEAC's progress as well. So that is going to give you this report, which tells us, okay, so this is my strong student. He did well in his common assessment. He got an 89 on his reading assessment, and he got, on his math, and a 92 in reading. Student is not struggling. He's doing just fine. This student, however, is an at-home student, and in math, he got a 64, and in reading, he got a 55, and he also failed my science test. So that gives me some more information that I need, especially a 55 in his reading test. So that is going to help me say, maybe I need to give him some testing strategies as far as reading the questions. More than I can look at his science test and be like, he failed the science test. Why did he fail it? And we can diagnose the question. But if he's having a reading issue, I can circle back around and maybe adjust my instruction to include instructions about reading and math. Apparently, once we get to that math, I'm a little concerned about a 64 in math. And then this student is in my class. He's an in-class student, and he had the lowest score on my common assessment, but he also had a poor score on his reading and a poor score in math. So I think this information might be more useful to us than our common assessment data even. I mean, it maybe will point us in the right direction for our common assessment data. Did you guys, have you
Well, one
commented
thing
on
I've
that?
always done is usually, like when I was teaching social studies or now science, I usually compare my scores with the reading.
Okay.
Because, I mean, if they can't read, if they're having trouble reading, they're not going to be able to do science and social studies like they should.
Okay. Yeah, and we
To
might
break
need
that.
some different strategies. So that is how I'll write down the steps for that, to find that that information. But I just wanted to show you the difference between, I wanted to look at an at-home student. I wanted to look at one of my strong GT kids. And then this student, and his work in class especially is not where he is, his peers, even in pre-AP, he's, it's like, here's everybody, and here's this kind of an outlier. And so I know that he needs some extra attention. So he's a student that I would probably start an RTI process on and see where he, what accommodations he needs, what he can, if he needs more reading support, kind of start those conversations.
I would certainly do that with some of my students.
Yeah.
I need to do that.
Okay. And that kind of brings us to a little bit about our common assessment. So we need to talk about our common assessment data, and we need to set some goals as a team, right? As a sixth grade team, what are we looking for on the next test? We need to talk about what went wrong on this test. So we can look at our lowest 3 questions, and I've got those marked. We can look at those. And what happened, what they choose, and why. So if you have that, let's look at that. And then, we were so kind to give our students an anchor chart, and I do not think it was helpful at all. I
don't know if they even looked at it.
I think that it also, in the kind of anchor chart we gave them, we got some guidance from LaShundra about what should be on our anchor chart. And I have for you a picture of what they're allowed to have on STAR. And we need to make sure that our anchor charts look more like that, because it doesn't make sense for us to give them all these helps here in the 6th grade. When they go to 8th grade, they're not going to get anything like that. So we really need to make sure that our anchor charts are more in line. I mean, ours looked beautiful. Don't get me wrong. They were lovely. However, they were not, they were a little too lovely, I think. Okay. So let me stop sharing the screen real quick. Okay. So let's look at our questions that we got the most incorrect. And Mr. Langley provided us our comparison data. Do you have that, Mary?
Yes.
Okay. As you can see, it was like a little steep hill. Like we did a lot. Thank you for putting this in this order for us. And we'll get this to you, Becky, when you come back. But it's our
thanks to Miss Rock. She showed me how to do it. So.
yeah, it's our areas of concern come first, so we don't have to waste our time going over questions they did well on. We know they've got that, right?
Would you
But-
like to show the test?
Oh, show the test?
Mhm.
Do I have a PDF of the test?
You do.
Okay, I can try and find it.
I received a PDF of it, but it would not open on my computer for some reason. I don't know.
Okay, if it doesn't open, let me know.
Did you email it to me recently?
That happens to me so often.
Yeah. Well, it was odd because, I mean, the other test opened up, but the 6th grade science one specifically, that I was going to print it out for everyone.
Yeah.
It would show me the first
Oh, there
picture
it
of cute little doggies, and then after that, it was like, nothing.
Nothing.
So,
I don't need that loaded. Thank you. Is it gonna work? But our questions were 3. There it goes. Sorry, it was number 8, number 4, and number 6, I believe overall were our really challenging questions. So we kind of need to think about what we start with number 4 and see what happened. I can tell you that next year I'm going to be taking some sugar and I'm going to be burning it on a spoon.
I swear.
I burned it.
I gave them that example and I straight out said, no matter what, the sugar turns black. That is the answer. I've seen this question many times.
Yeah, so question number 4, it gets us every year. Every year this question comes up.
Why?
So I don't know what.
Oh.
Turn my screen.
Your screen.
Oh, okay. Oh, sorry, Ms. Leverett. Let me share my screen. I should just, I guess, leave it shared. Okay. And where was it? No. There it is. Okay. So during a science experiment, the teacher places an amount of sugar in a spoon, heats it over a candle. Which of the following be the best evidence that the change occurred, a chemical change has taken place? And okay, our kids really, they liked that the sugar turns into a colorless liquid and that the sugar gets hotter. And they're choosing that because we've told them in Country Girls Love to Party On that a temperature change happens and a color change happens. Well, if sugar is clear, if sugar is white and then it turns clear, I think in the mind of a student, that's a color change. And if we heat something up and it gets hotter, they're calling that a temperature change because those are the 2 highest ones after the right answer. And I really think that we need to maybe think about the way we're teaching that.
or could it also be that students have watched people melt down sugar
Yes,
into a colorless liquid?
that's what I'm.
Yes, they've probably seen that at home if they've ever made fudge, if they've
Yeah.
ever made anything
Yeah.
baking related, they've certainly experienced that. But I think we need to maybe clarify more when we teach the acronym that it's an unexpected temperature change. If you heat something, you expect it to get hotter.
Right.
Just because it got hotter when you lit it on fire does not mean, when you applied heat. So I think we should clarify that, and that a color change, it's an unexpected color change. I don't know. What do you guys think about the best way to?
This is how I explain it to mine. If it's a temperature change during a chemical reaction, then there is not an outside source.
Right.
It heats up because of the reaction. And so if you see a lighter and something is melting, that is a physical change, not a chemical change.
It's like melting, it's just.
Mhm.
Unless it is touching it and it is burning it and it is a brand new burn up substance, then that is just a physical change. It is not a chemical change. Boiling water is a physical change. The molecules stay the same. And I think me reiterating that, the labs we did, where I was like, when we touched it, it was what? And they were like, hot. Okay. Did I catch it on fire? No. Okay. Because I think that was the one they chose the highest too. Because most of mine, I had 47% get it right. And then,
And I think what you said
okay, so,
about
and then they chose that it turned into a colorless liquid. Yeah, those were their 2 favorites.
Mhm.
But most of them, 47% of them got it right. And
Yeah.
30% chose colorless liquid.
Another way that you could do it is, this is a really good way for the students to interact with the content.
Mhm.
You could actually have them taste plain sugar
Mhm.
and then have them taste blackened sugar, and they can tell you that it's different. Whereas when it's just colorless, it still tastes like sugar.
Yeah, we could do that.
Yeah.
That's true. And we could,
You can do all four of those things.
yeah.
I mean, you can't make it bigger and then bring it to.
We don't have to worry about.
Right.
that.
And I talked
Exactly.
about if you've ever eaten, if you've ever burned a marshmallow,
Oh, yeah.
that's sugar. Sugar
Oh,
is
yeah.
marshmallow, you know, and I think it's the application of that. They know, they can recite to me, country girls love to party on. They know the evidence of chemical change. But several times on this
Mhm.
test, they were not able to distinguish when it is a chemical change and when it is a physical change, because we just teach country girls love to party on. We do the acronym. I think we need to really think about differently, maybe the way that we teach that
Right.
to make them apply that into different situations.
Well, and we had the lab where you had the temperature change when you just put two liquids together.
I don't know that we highlighted that very well.
I did. I mean,
I
did.
didn't. I know I didn't pull that out and say, hey, we mixed these two things together and they got hot. There was no heat. I didn't make that. I think when I do that lab again,
I bet you
I
did.
think I'll do that better.
We did it. I took sodium bicarbonate and baking soda, and then I took a sodium I think it was sodium carbonate I took. And there was a different chemical change. There was a different, one was endothermic and one was exothermic. So, and plus we do elephant toothpaste, which is exothermic. So they were aware of the temperature change in that lab. You know what I mean? So I don't know if they were just more aware of it than a color change, because we did one color change lab and that was with bleach and water, trying to undo it, you know,
You
but
should just do this lab.
Well, and then another thing that we do the reaction where, like you said, you mix the chemicals and it caused a chemical change.
Mhm.
But did we not do a chemical change and show them like, I am heating water. This is not a chemical change.
No, we didn't, because we didn't do that, because
Oh,
another
we just talked
question
about it.
they got, question number 8 is along the same line, because they said that the formation of bubbles is always a sign of chemical change. And I'm like, have you ever boiled water?
That's
Well,
what
we
I'm
need to
told.
boil some water and
Yeah.
say, this is still water. I think we need
Blow
to,
in your milk.
yes, I think we need to clarify that a little bit better. I think
Yeah.
that's why these were so low. They were not able to apply
Well,
what,
and I also think
Yeah.
another reason was because of last year. They did not get to finish last year in the room, in the classroom. And I think that had an effect on them coming into the school and getting back into that learning mode of being in the classroom.
that may, yeah.
Yeah, that's what I'm also, but it sounds like also from number 4 though, that y'all had this issue with this question in previous years.
Yes.
You said we're probably just gonna cut some.
Yes.
sugar
Yeah,
on
so
the
we're
fruit.
gonna have to do it.
So yeah,
That's
so,
why they keep
yeah.
putting it on the
Burn
test.
some sugar.
Right, yeah.
Which I
Yeah, no,
did.
I think it's a great idea to show both those sides. That's gonna give them a big, a good idea. Those would be very simple labs in my opinion. Tell me if I'm wrong, but
No,
heating up water in front of a kid, giving them burnt sugar and being like, eat this nasty thing.
They'd be all over that.
No, it is.
So 4 and 8 were basically the same, as far as not being able to apply the country girls love to party on. Because they, like I said, they all wanted to say that bubbles are always an indicator of a chemical change. So I think that is kind of the same thing in question number 8.
So the
They
correct
poured a
answer
glass
is
of
G, and the
soda.
majority of students chose D as the correct answer across the board.
that was one of our warm-ups. The exact same question was one of our warm-ups, and they still chose bubbles.
This number.
J? Oh, it was
there-
J. I'm
there
sorry,
it is.
42%.
Yeah, sorry, Jay.
Yeah, 42% of mine shows J, which is that because the formation of bubbles is always an indicator of a chemical change. I think we need to, a really easy way to do this
Yep.
is to shake up a Coke, because after I read this question, and by the way, I got it wrong when I took the test. So,
Hey, I researched it.
okay.
I did 2 years ago.
I don't know. So I think we should shake up a Coke, because it's like when you shake up a Coke, when I was going over the test with them, when you shake up a Coke, the bubbles are already in there, right? Okay, so when you leave it alone, they go back. So there obviously is gas trapped in there. I think we really
Well,
need to,
and when
have
I
them do that.
researched it, they pump carbon dioxide into it
yes,
before they camp it.
Yes.
And then when you take the camp off, I told my kids, do you ever hear it go, shh? I
mhm,
said, that's the carbon dioxide escaping some of it, but the
Mhm.
other floats on top.
yeah.
So, I mean, we talked about that.
Yeah.
After it was over, so.
Yeah.
Hopefully they don't miss that one.
Well, and I think me personally, after talking with LaShandra about how I go over the test after the test is not effective for students. And so I'm going to change the way I do that. I'm going to cut the test apart and give each group of kids a couple of questions and have them analyze their own responses and defend what they chose before I ever give them the correct answer. Because me giving you the correct answer and us talking about it does not have them talk about their
Right.
thinking.
Right.
And
That's good. I like that.
I really think that is why we're not seeing the results. Maybe you guys can give me some insight as to that, but I in my class know that children are not talking about their thinking enough.
Right.
Why you think this way. We're doing lots of application. I mean, we're building roller coasters and we're having a great time doing that. But later we're going to talk about why you chose to build it that way, how that affected how the marble behaved. And I really want there to be much more conversation in my room. I'd like you guys' feedback on what you think about what we can do to help them.
I
No.
think that's great.
I think that's a great step in the right direction of, forcing the kids to say, you have to, I mean, even if they partner up or group up, you can be very intentional with those groupings, or you could, give it a shot in the dark one day
Mhm.
and just say, get with your group and, why did you, and probably when you did your debate in the class the other day, it's you need to be able to defend your answer. If you can't, you might be wrong.
Mhm.
So good luck with that.
Right. Yeah.
But I do think number 8 could also be a fun little lab that goes into conjunction with the boiling water and the blowing bubbles. It's the day they get to shake up a Coke.
Yes.
We can buy Dr. Thunders for 99 cents and
Yes,
just go out
we
there
can.
and shake it up. And,
Shake it up.
Yeah.
Yes, we can. Leverett, what do you think about your students? I know that you've struggled with the results on the common assessment and just in general, your students and kind of them grasping the concept. Are there some things that you think we should do differently?
Well, I really kind of feel like with my kids, I think there needs to be a lot more repetition. I don't think they write enough. And I think that has a lot to do with why it's not sticking. They type everything up, and I really don't feel like that sticks with them. I kind of feel like I'm going to start having them do a lot more writing. Their writing skills need to improve anyway. So why not just kill 2 birds with 1 stone and have them write a lot more than what I'm doing with them now? You know what I mean? The vocabulary is given to them a lot of times because we're trying to get into lab and rush through things. And I think that they're missing the whole concept when they don't know the content vocabulary. They maybe could tell you to a certain extent when something is orally, but if it's written down, they're just like, I don't know that they truly understand the meaning of things. And so that's where I really need to push things. There's a connection lost between what we're doing in lab and the meaning of it. Even if I'm like, well, what kind of change is that during lab? Like chemical. Okay, great, we got it. But then when we are trying to put that on paper, it just doesn't transfer.
Yeah, I definitely think the application is the problem. Like they can recite vocabulary. They're really
Yep.
good at reciting vocabulary. They're not good at thinking about what that concept means. That, I think.
I'm sorry,
Go ahead.
how often do y'all include a visual that students put into their journal?
Every time we deconstruct the teeth.
They drew
Well, Chandra does it every time she deconstructs
Okay, there we
the
go.
teeth.
That's
What
Right.
was the question?
okay.
I couldn't really hear Langley.
My notes. Huh? Go ahead, Becky. I'm sorry.
Sorry, I couldn't really hear Langley. I didn't hear the question.
I asked, how often are we including a visual for the kids to have that they can refer to in their journal or wherever it is? Because we have these kids who they know they can regurgitate a word to you.
Mhm.
They can regurgitate, country girls like to party or whatever it is.
Mhm.
But they can't, they seem to forget what a chemical change is. So if we are including a visual of here's what country girls look like when they're partying,
Mhm.
then maybe that breaks it down for them a little more.
Well, we did use, I did use visuals in my journal, and I have a picture of it probably in my Google Classroom too. When we did,
Yeah, I did as well. I think I think that he has a valid point. For mine, especially as my English language learners, they struggle regardless. So I think they need that visual more so.
Yeah.
StemScopes has a great picture vocabulary. From here on out, when we do vocabulary, it's going to be draw it, write it,
Yep.
using a sentence kind of thing.
Yeah.
Explain what this means.
And all that is available in, and I don't think that it's helpful to give the students, just give them those. I think they need to create, in math, they use career models a lot where they give example, non-example, and all of that. So we might consider doing that. We might consider trying it for sure and seeing if it helps, because if they can understand more about the concept, then maybe they can apply it more broadly.
And we do need to start here in the 6th grade.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yes, we definitely do start that in the 6th grade. Yeah. I want to talk about, before we get too far on, and this is, I want to talk about our at-home kids versus our in-class kids. How did they do on the Common Assessment on the BOY? I only had one, 4 of my at-home students were in quintile 3 or below, and everybody else was up there out of like 13. So I find that there are my online students are doing okay. I have some really strong ones, and I have some that are not as strong, but little by little they're coming back to school. So do you want to talk about your online kids versus your in-person kids as they, not just take their common assessments, but I guess participate in class and grasp the content?
I still have a few that are asynchronous that are not participating like they should. They have not been doing some of their classwork like they should. So I have 2 grades right now in the grade book for last week, and I need to communicate with their parents about that. So I will be sending a message or phone calling those parents. It's just, I think, 2 of my students.
Okay.
But the others, this week they started coming in. It was full. Everybody would be in almost all of my classes.
That's great.
And participating. So, but then I still have like 2 that are not. I got to communicate with them. So.
Becky, I know a lot of your students came back from home. Those that are still at home or online, has that gotten better for you?
It really has. Just some of them. No, the ones that have consistently attended did much better than those who do not consistently attend. But their grades were lower than I had hoped they would be. But the ones that I had assumed were not going to do well are the ones that I rarely ever see or are negligent in turning in their work.
Okay.
No.
Okay. So I don't have very many left at home. And so the ones that are at home are doing well. And I have just emailed like a couple of them were missing some grades. I emailed them and let them know, reminded them of what the GT policy is, and that would be adhered to, and they should probably pick it up and get better, going on. I've had lots of, like I said, family support when I send something home or I email a parent. They're pretty well responsive to that.
I had a parent come in the office today and wanted to know if I had any work for her son. And Ms. Richardson was talking to me, and I said, please tell her that all the work is on Google Classroom. And so she told the lady that, and so she was she was satisfied with whatever, with my answer. I said, whatever I could send you right now is also on Google Classroom. So she said she would go in and that she had the ability to print and whatever she needed to do, so she would be doing that at home this afternoon.
Okay.
Well,
How are you guys doing with virtual labs? I am trying to recreate labs at home for our students. Do you know of any resources or something we should use for visual labs. It's difficult to, like, we're making roller coasters, and so my friends at home are just like making their own roller coaster by themselves. We couldn't really do the really cool test tube lab.
I saw a video today on the roller coaster thing.
Okay, what can you tell us about CK12, Mr. Rogers?
CK12 has a lot of online resources for virtual labs. And they
Okay.
cover everything from biology, chemistry, physics, and best of all, it's free.
Okay,
You can log in as a teacher. There's even some access to where a student can log in without having to, like, passwords and all of that.
okay,
And that gives you an opportunity to look for some of those labs that the students can interact with at home.
okay. So we need to look into,
www.ck12.
okay, we'll look at, we can look at CK12. And as we I want to make sure we swing back around to our anchor chart, right? Okay, so this is apparently the anchor chart that they get for a star. And Becky, I know you can't see this, but I'll make sure we all get a copy of this. But if there's there aren't any words on here. And I don't know how this would help a
What is
student.
that?
I have no idea. Miss Rogers says that this is right here, evidence of chemical change right there. Then I'm not even sure what ERP means.
Elements, react, products.
Okay.
Okay.
And then there's Ape Man. So these are things they're taught in as they prepare for the STAR test. And so I think it'd be really good if we work with the 8th grade teachers to be educated on what this means first,
For
and
sure.
then give
Yeah.
these tools to our students as memory tools, to help them. We know our little heart diagram that we use for our formulas and stuff, but I think that if we're using this starting in 6th grade and going forward, then, if this anchor chart is up there, they're going to know, apparently, they're going to know what Ape Man means. They're going to know, what all.
That is the supplemental aid
Okay.
that they can have. The state of Texas said
That is
that
the
they can
state,
have that.
that's from the state. Okay.
Mhm.
Well, the state doesn't provide it to you. The school can submit what they want on it, and then they send it in for approval.
Yeah.
Oh,
And
okay.
then, so that has been approved because it has no words. So if you have an acronym that spells a word, you have to rearrange it because it cannot spell a word.
Okay. So this is more in line with the anchor chart that we've been using. So we're going to, I think, need to start using these tools with our students
So
starting the
Ape Man
6th
is a
grade.
word.
But it's an
not
acronym.
because it doesn't directly relate to a topic.
Gotcha. Understood.
Okay. Okay, I have covered, I think, most of what's on the agenda we have covered, I think. We talked about accessing DMAC and using that to recommend RTIs if those are needed. We talked about making sure that you're reaching out to the parents if you are having a challenge. We have broken down our common assessment based on our questions that we missed the most and compared at home versus in person. I would like to look quickly back at Unit 1 and 2 and see what we need to change for our IB planner. And then as we move forward in 3 and 4, where we're at right now, which is force, motion, energy, and transformations, what we need to change and how we can help Becky catch up, because she's out sick, right? And she's very concerned. She mentioned before you guys came, she's very concerned about her students being behind. So I'm not sure.
Oh.
So maybe we can brainstorm some strategies to help her get her kids forward,
I
on
don't
time.
know if she knows, but today I gave her the information for 5.3, which is the forces. They've done.
I didn't hear that. What was that?
They've done 5.3
vocabulary.
vocabulary.
They were supposed to have read and discussed it with them, but I'm not sure how much they did on the discussion, but they do have that worksheet. He may have taken it up, which is a really good worksheet because it just doesn't state the definitions and you have to match it with the word. You probably have seen the worksheet. It's a statement, but like I said, it's not a direct definition.
Okay.
but
Is it from the textbook?
describes it, yes,
Okay.
which is really good one. I liked it. So,
Okay.
Because it is kind of a higher level
Okay.
thinking.
So maybe we could do some well, we're off, let's see, I'm off second period. Maybe we could team teach second period if that would help you get them further along, or just get a different voice in there. I don't, and maybe you could do it first period.
Yeah.
What do you think about that,
I
Becky?
can come into her class first period.
Yeah, that's fine with me. Yeah, I'm okay with that. Maybe some of them could use more one-on-one.
Okay.
It's not, I don't have very big classes, so luckily I've been able to work with some of them closely. But like I have some that are just walking in the door, really haven't got a lot out of them online, so I don't know what they're capable of truly.
Well, maybe we could do like we did when you and I team taught, and we had both, we combined our classes in first period that one time, that, because I have, a small class first period as well. So maybe we can try that again.
That's one thing I was going to ask.
I think maybe it would help motivate my students, a little bit more.
Okay.
Some of them anyway. I think that it would give them a little more motivation.
Okay. Maybe we can do some peer tutoring or something too.
Is there a way for us to develop a, what we would normally consider a bell ringer, maybe extend it to beyond the 5-minute mark of 8 to 10 minutes possibly? You would have to condense your lesson, the actual lesson for that day somewhat, but there is a 10-minute respiral every day. Here's information that we learned at, first 6 weeks.
Similar to what they do in math.
Exactly.
They have the spiral
So
review.
it's a constant
all around it.
that would then help these kids who are transitioning from at home to school. I don't know exactly what the best way, the most effective way for science for that to look, but just just some sort of way that is a fun-ish way of respiraling, chemical changes, forces, things like that.
So they can hold on to it, not
Exactly,
just, so
absolutely.
they can hold on to it, because we're going to have, we don't know what's going to be on the next test. Are we going to have to go back and reteach all of density? Or, I don't want to reteach all of density.
Right.
But yeah, I think definitely we could look for a resource or come up with our own.
Yeah.
To spiral back. Well, I hope that this was helpful. I want to ask Mr. Langley if he has anything more for us as a team, since this is our PLC, and what else we need to cover, if you feel like we've covered everything, or if we need to.
I think I've done a great job on the PLC. I appreciate y'all's work and willingness to meet after school to get it done, since y'all weren't able to meet during the school day yesterday. I do really appreciate that. Just a heads up, of October 21st and 22nd are our next common assessments. So y'all's will be October 21st. I think so.
I think so.
Yeah.
Yes.
Y'all will be October 21st. Our next PLC assigned date is November 9th.
Okay.
And we have a half day somewhere between here and there, I think. So,
Yeah.
Last time I spoke with Ms. Schobert, there was discussion of half of that day being for Stop the Bleed training.
Okay.
And then the other half would be for the unit planning and the y'all's time to work together to plan. So we're gonna fight real hard to protect that.
Okay.
So, yeah.
And we will need to go back through and assign the units to correct the ATLs and the global questions from our training of the IB. And I'll just send out an email, and we'll do that offline, or we'll get together. And I'll visit with you guys when you come back. There was this thing I saw on one of the agendas about tutorials.
Mhm.
Is that happening? I just saw it on somebody else's PLC. I just want to make sure.
Right. No, thank you. So tutorials are an option if you want to host them after school or before school. Your choice. You will get paid for them. I have been told. And you let us know what days you're going to do it, what hours you're going to do it. And from my understanding, and I could be wrong on this, so I'll clarify with Mr. Carroll, but it could be something of, you have tutorials on Tuesdays for science. If kids need help in science and they can only come on Tuesday, Mary and Rebecca's kids come to you.
Oh, okay,
right?
so you're like the science person for that
Exactly,
day.
for
Okay.
that day. Yeah, something like that could potentially happen. So
Okay.
that way you have the potential of having more tutorials throughout the week, because everyone takes a day or 2 days, and then more kids can come potentially. So,
Okay. Be on the lookout for news later.
yes.
Okay. All right. Does anybody have anything else that they would like to share, need to share? that you will help you to reach your kids. That's our goal. That's always our goal, is to reach our students wherever they are. And some of them are at the front of the pack, and some of them are, at the back of the pack, really struggling, and we need to get them as close together as we can. So whatever we can do, I'm perfectly willing to do. And I myself am struggling with teaching a pre-AP class. So I've always taught GT. And so finding out what tools are going to work to bring those kids along. And I think definitely looking at their performance on the math and the reading is a good place to start. And we can kind of maybe set some goals together about moving some of our students from quintile 1, those people that are down in quintile 1. And, if you have a lot there, you have a lot there. But I'm not saying we're going to move them all, because that's just not going to happen. But maybe think about a number, a percentage. I want to move 2-3% of my quintile 1 kids into quintile 2 by the next common assessment, because it's a manageable, measurable goal that we can set as a team. Is there a number that you might be okay with?
I've got to move more than that.
Okay, we have to start
I'm gonna
with a
try
small
really
step.
hard. Okay, I will start with 10%. Okay.
That is a lofty
If
goal.
I can't meet that goal, I need to work harder.
Okay. Becky, do
Starting
you
at
feel
10%.
comfortable setting some type of goal just so that we can say, so we can measure some growth?
Yes, definitely.
Okay. I think 10% is a
I'm
big
gonna try my
step.
best.
Okay. If you guys want to say
From 1
10%,
to 2 is what we're saying.
So saying from each
Oh.
from quintile
Gotcha.
1 to move it, just, the
Gotcha.
first step, we got to
For sure.
move those. If you guys want to say 10%, we can say 10%.
I don't want to set my goal low.
Okay.
I want to set it a little higher so that I can, if I don't make 10% and I actually get 2 or 3,
We can still celebrate that
Well,
success.
at
Our
this
job is
point,
to
I mean,
move kids,
2
right?
to 3 is pretty much that is basically 10% of each of your quintiles.
Okay.
So,
So we want to move 10%. And I'll put this in our agenda, and I'll send the agenda back out with the notes of the things that we talked about and the goals that we set. And then that way, when we meet again at our next PLC, we can say we were successful in trying and looking back over that data and connecting those dots. And we scheduled the RTI, and we used the visual vocabulary, and we either got results from those things or we didn't. And then we can say, okay, well, we need to try some new things.
Yeah.
Okay.
one thing that you can always start thinking about, obviously not implementing right away, but because I know y'all's days don't perfectly align as far as classes go.
Mhm.
However, if you found at some point that there was a grouping of students who were still at the back of the pack and you still had your advanced kids, y'all have, in my opinion, as long as the kids are being counted present, you have the freedom to say, okay, the kids in Mary's third period, she has 2 boys who are doing phenomenal, and she needs to work on those bubble kids. Well, Rebecca needs to just bring up these kids from down here to up there. Mary sends 2 of her kids over to Rebecca. Rebecca sends her bubble kids to Mary, and y'all
that's what I'm
do a
thinking.
shift.
Peer
Or
tutoring,
send
that's what
kids
we're
that,
talking about.
if you've got some kids that are ahead and you don't want them to have to sit around and wait,
Right, exactly.
my
That's
classes
huge,
are not
exactly.
full except for third period. That's the only class that I have no seats.
It's a bad example. So here-
But
still,
but
yeah,
right,
but still.
but
But
yeah.
you may have some kids in your third period who are not at the advanced level as the rest of them are. So
Yeah.
they may have to go to Mary to get some remediation, or to Becky.
Yeah, I think that's definitely something we could look at
Yeah.
going forward.
And I've had a chance to kind of keep in y'all's windows. And another thing that y'all can look at is observing some other teachers, some of y'all that do really good skills. Like Leverett has been deconstructing the tick since,
She's so good at
Ever.
that.
and she does it really, really well.
And I don't do it at all, just if we're being honest.
And so, and that's when she lets them know what the expectation is,
Mhm.
what they're going to be learning a lot, and she does, unless she stopped doing it,
She-
it does the visual, the
Yes.
non-linguistic representation of the teeth.
Okay,
And so that'll give you guys a step there.
definitely. Yeah, and I always like to see other teachers teach anyway and see, oh, that's really a good idea. I want to
Yep.
try that in my class.
Or you leave the room feeling better about yourself.
There you go, either way.
Come
Okay.
to my class, you will.
I feel like we have made progress. We've set some goals that we can actually measure. I appreciate you guys so much for staying after class it's late, and I know, and I appreciate it, and I'll bring you all coffee tomorrow,
Bring
maybe,
us one.
if I remember. But if there is nothing else, then I am adjourning our meeting.
Well, thank you very much.
Thank
Thank
you.
Mr. Langley.
Thank you.
All right, see you tomorrow.
All right, feel better. I hope you feel better,
Bye.
Becky. Bye.
Yeah, bye.
Bye.
Oh, goodness. Well, I was just thinking,
I'll wait till
Trish.
I'll wait till she turns off the recording.